Dearest friends, I've created this audio file for part 2 of my latest article because the written version is very long and I thought that some people might prefer to listen. I will say that I've been told many times that my voice can make people very sleepy. So I would suggest that you perhaps listen to this when you're lying on a sofa or sitting comfortably in a chair rather than driving or anything like that, riding a bike or whatever. And if you drift off and you fall asleep, that's perfect. Okay, so I will begin. Lots of love to everyone. Trust. All is well, all will be well, everything is as it's meant to be. Lots of love. The Corona Crown Virus Part 2, a higher octave perspective. In Part 1 of this article, we looked at the practicalities in terms of taking care of our physical health during this time of the COVID-19 virus. Here, in Part 2, I wish to share a stream of gnosis in regard to elements of the higher purpose of the virus, which has now taken centre stage news across the world. The physical and energetic bodies each have a crown. On the physical body, this is represented by the crown of the head, and in the energy body, the crown constitutes the 7th chakra. I often speak in terms of the psychological model bifocal vision, where one is encouraged to relate to any given event, situation, scenario from 2 different perspectives. 1, the here and now 3D level, the 3rd dimensional, consciously unevolved and spiritually unawakened human being and world. And 2, the higher vibrational frequency of 5D level, the 5th dimensional, consciously evolved and spiritually awakened human being and world. A great wave of cleansing and purifying. Looking at the C virus and the position the global community currently finds itself in, if we view the situation through a bifocal lens, then what is revealed is that an unprecedented wave of cleansing and purification is sweeping through the world. At an everyday physical level, this is being implemented via our hygiene practices and a revision of our overall hygiene standards, i.e. the regular washing of hands and cleaning of our spaces, be these our homes, offices, places of work, cars, transport, etc. Yet, this great purification is not only occurring on the level of the physical body, but also within the emotional, mental and energy bodies, where a deep historical, ancestral, karmic, emotional, mental, energetic and auric clearing is taking place. This is a spiritual reboot and upgrade. Many of the foods, supplements and remedies I wrote about in part 1 of this article can serve this greater purification. More self-aware, self-directing, self-empowered. We have reached a point on the evolutionary timeline where we need to recognize that it is essential that we each take more response ability, be more response able, and become more aware of the impact our physical presence and actions exert on others and the world. We are being called to connect more fully with the greater spectrum of life and to be more self-responsible, self-directing and self-empowered, to think and act in ways that serve the highest good of all. inside a two-sided coin. This moment of inside is a two-sided coin. One, it refers to our lives behind closed doors, i.e. our home life, and also to our private inner world. Great Spirit is present and invites us to withdraw, to commune with our inner core, and to deeply trust and allow this evolutionary process to flow. 2. The other side of our proverbial coin reveals the necessity to become more considerate of others, i.e. family, friends, colleagues, and so-called, in single quotes, strangers, close quotes. Social distancing, a mirror of what already exists. So, how might we support each other in our divinely ordained retreat? How might we more consciously and compassionately care for ourselves and each other while in lockdown? The fact is that social distancing is not something new that has now been foisted upon us. For even though we may be surrounded by others, for the most part we remain emotionally removed and distant. Look at our behaviour on trains, buses, and in public places, such as queues in shops, where people tend not to talk to each other. Indeed, on the contrary, many purposely distance themselves. Social distancing offers us a mirror in which we can recognize just how far we have moved away from ourselves, each other, and nature when engrossed in our day-to-day lives. Everything is a rush, a crazy blur of doing, for there is simply no time to pause and listen to our hearts and interact with each other from this place of love. In the chaotic whirlwind of most people's lives, meaningful communication is lost. Even during public holidays such as Easter and Christmas, people are still blindly rushing around. Our loss is the gain of a global system that prioritizes profit at any cost. A thick societal fog of doing prevents the majority of people from connecting with each other more deeply in soulful ways. Glass half empty or half full. An extraordinary moment is upon us, and it comes bearing gifts for those of us who will allow ourselves to experience what is unfolding as an evolutionary invitation from the higher realms. Now we are given some much-deserved time out. We can welcome this as a time for reflection and for listening to our hearts, if we so choose, because everything is a choice. Many are focused on the prospect of social isolation from a perspective of the glass being half empty rather than half full. The former is understandable given the financial implications this enforced instruction imposes on the majority of us. But if we can cut back in terms of our spending on non-essentials and implement a vastly pared down weekly budget, a simpler way of living where we can manage this situation becomes possible. This was how the majority of our grandparents and their grandparents before them were forced to live, for they had no choice but to exist in the shadow of a near absence of work and income. Everything is a choice. As I shared earlier, everything is a choice, and what we are now facing affords society at large the potential for a major turning point and a reassessment of values if we can realize that there is more to living than work alone. The quality of abundance that enriches to one's core is not to be found in a purse. Simple living, eating, loving, and caring are the wisdom paths that will lead us to a whole different way of being. If we can remain mindful not to default back into our old routines and patterns the moment the green light is given to re-enter the world. Doing versus being. Sacred law decrees that there is always a greater purpose to any situation we find ourselves in, as both individuals and as a world. The C virus brings an important gift to us now, and if we can understand this and open our hands and hearts to receive it, we can see that it is guiding us to live our lives in a healthier way. It is giving us a chance to disengage from an over-preoccupation with the external and instead retreat into ourselves for the purpose of re-evaluating our lives. It is affording us some time to consciously remove ourselves from a system that reduces us to mere cogs in a wheel of relentless doing. A system that does not care about our personal lives beyond its singular economical objective: profit. Some precious time. The C virus creates some precious time for us to take space from the monotonous routines that form the primary experiences of most of our lives. Lives so juxtaposed from how we are really meant to be living while here on this beautiful planet. The directive to remain inside is a blessing in disguise and offers a glimpse into another way of being. If we allow ourselves to step off the system's for-profit treadmill, which dominates most of our lives and surreptitiously steals the light of inspiration from our hearts and minds. Running other programs or walking to the beat of our own drum. The age-old lament that there has to be more to life than this is the deep cellular and cellular teaching of the C virus. This unprecedented moment can facilitate and support a redefining of the more than our lives can be. Life as we know it has been suspended, and our usual over-preoccupation with out there has had to give way to a rare opportunity to focus in here, inside ourselves. We are gifted with something quite unexpected: time. To redress the imbalance of our daily lives and to contemplate the existential question that there has to be more to life than this. All this doing, all this running around. We have unconsciously been running on that treadmill, as did our forefathers and foremothers. We are continuing to run the old programs and patterns that belong to generations long gone, most of whom were overworked, underpaid, and entirely overlooked and undervalued by a self-serving system that still exerts its grip on our generation to this very day. We do not need to keep running, but only to remember that we are here to walk to the beat of our own drum, under our own terms and our own authority, consciously, mindfully, compassionately, and with great consideration. Times are changing. The old dysfunctional, dismissive, and disregarding ways are sinking fast. The love of power is dying, giving way to the power of love. And yes, we were born for these times. The homeopathic dose, succussion. A potent psycho-spiritual metaphor is that of the homeopathic dose. This equates to the tiniest particle of a given substance administered for maximum effect. A barely measurable dosage enters the human biological system to dissolve a specific malady and support the healing and recovery of that system. The same analogy applies to the system that is the world. Homeopathy treats the dis-ease with a microscopic dose of itself. In other words, we could view the C virus as a homeopathic dose that can ultimately affect healing within the overall body, i.e. system, of the world. This is just one of the doses needed in these instrumental and transformational times. The collective body is sick and needs to heal. Bitter medicine may not be pleasant, but in time its results often prove to be sweet. This homeopathic dose that is the C virus is meant to be, as is everything that occurs in this world. Nothing is random or by chance. Many theories abound in regard to just how this C virus originated, but the likelihood is that it was created in a laboratory for the purpose of being unleashed into the public domain for a specific reason and effect. However, this particular article is not the place to address that subject. So, returning to the metaphor of homeopathy, interestingly, given the corona crown focus of this piece, the dilution process in homeopathy is known as succussion. This is very similar to the sovereign term succession. In the context of the more than, that is the higher purpose of the corona crown virus, this term reminds us of an evolutionary trajectory towards ultimate succession to our sovereign self, the embodied state of I am. The rare and major astrological event of January the 12th, 2020, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and I write about that on my website under articles, is fulfilling its prophecy and purpose in that the system is breaking down. As this continues, the collective body psyche needs a homeopathic dose that can heal and bring it back into homeostasis. We have the opportunity now to more fully open our hearts in preparation for the greater opening of the crown chakra of the world. Homeopathic doses will continue to be administered to society by way of the collective soul. Staying inside is just one of a series of succussion remedial courses that will ultimately empower us to succession as we reclaim our sovereignty and co-create a new world in which all life forms, animate and inanimate, are treated as the sovereign beings they really are. Give nature a chance. Nature herself is already responding positively to the lack of human dominance within its realm and is bouncing back. Just one example are the canals and waterways of Venice, which are seeing a return of swans and dolphins for the first time in decades or longer. We need to confront the impact that humanity has on the natural world and stop taking ownership and possession of all living beings. One of the many reasons that our lives are so wildly out of balance is because of the assault, destruction, and immeasurable suffering we continue to inflict on nature. We reduce all other life forms to being nothing more than products and commodities. Cattle are not cattle, but cows, living, breathing, sentient, feeling, and intelligent beings, as is all life. Mass overbreeding, mass land clearance, mass possession and ownership of every corner of the environment has robbed us of the true and rich experience of just what it means to be alive on Earth. This planetary paradise has been enslaved by the ignorance of the unconscious and unawakened human mind and heart. In this moment's pause, nature is being given a chance. We need to recognize just what has been done to her, and we need to encourage and support her to come home to herself. Heaven within externalized. Spiritually, we are undergoing a series of higher directive and higher directed initiations. These often present as extreme challenges, yet are entirely divinely timed to support a disidentification from the outdated, outmoded, obsolescent system that belongs to an old paradigm. These challenges are a catalyst which facilitate humanity to take the next step on its timeline within the evolutionary spiral. We can readjust our lens to view the current inside scenario for what it really is from a higher dimensional perspective, i.e., an opportunity to disengage from the frantic pace of everyday life in the matrix and to reprioritize what constitutes real value in our own lives and for the world. Inside each one of us is a special piece of heaven, whole and unbroken, Paracelsus. This is where we need to primarily position ourselves now, in this sacred place within us that is the center of our being. That is living heaven on earth. Coming home to ourselves. Some of us will spend much of this time alone, and for those who embrace this experience, an extraordinary integrative opportunity will be ours. In Araya Mountain Dreamer's invitation, she writes the following: I want to know if you can be alone with yourself, and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. If the answer to this is yes, then we have already come home to ourselves. If, however, the answer is no, then we still have more healing to do. The following quote is by the Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. As you move through these changing times, be easy on yourself and be easy on one another. You are at the beginning of something new. You are learning a new way of being. You will find that you are working less in the yang modes that you are used to. You will stop working so hard at getting from point A to B the way you have in the past, but instead will spend more time experiencing yourself in the whole and your place in it. Instead of traveling to a goal out there, you will voyage deeper into yourself. Your mother's grandmother knew how to do this. Your ancestors from long ago knew how to do this. And because you carry their DNA in your body, this wisdom and this way of being is within you. Call on it. Call it up. Invite your ancestors in. As the yang-based habits and the decaying institutions on our planet begin to crumble, look up. A breeze is stirring. Feel the sun on your wings. There is more to life. There is more to life than being caught in entrenched patterns of doing and being weighed down unnaturally by burden, responsibility and duty. 3D life, i.e. the old world, will take everything and give little to nothing of true value back in terms of the joy and abundance that is meant to be ours in equal measure. Play and work need to be balanced in that order. But millennia of conditioning has confused purpose with becoming a slave to a globally dysfunctional system. This is not spiritually directed service, but whole-scale servitude imposed by consumerism and an out-of-balance political agenda. Our purpose is to be healthy and wealthy in heart, soul, and materially, as we passionately contribute to a conscious world that is founded on love, kindness, care, consideration, compassion, peace, and harmony. We are meant to have enough time for dreaming and making our dreams manifest. We are meant to have quality time for our beloveds, families, and friends. We are meant to have more time for our relationships with ourselves, others, nature, life, spirit. Stock up and stay in. The government instruction echoing around the world to stay home has a positive upside that becomes clearer and clearer the less we succumb to fear. If we can put fear aside, we will see what becomes possible in terms of living our daily lives in more freedom and happiness. Yet the fact remains that the majority of us cannot financially afford to step off the merry-go-round that is the system, which spins so fast we become too dizzy to recognize that our right to live in peaceful enjoyment has been lost. The financial implication of this time out is the main concern for the majority of people. On Wednesday, I read an inspirational post by a landlord called Andrew Thomas, who sent the following message to his tenants, and to other landlords, some of whom have adopted the same approach. Quote, "Today, I'm letting my tenants know that they will not have to pay next month's rent. This should afford them the ability to stay home from work with their families and slow the spread of the virus. In these uncertain times, we all must do our part to help out our community. I'm calling on landlords everywhere to do the same." Close quote. That is the spirit, and what a wonderful example of just what can be done if we set our hearts and minds to it. We just need to help each other. People are also anxious about being socially distant and isolated. But we can take heart when we look at our Italian friends who opened their windows to sing so they can still connect with each other. We can support each other financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually. We are only a bank transfer, a window, or phone call away. None of us need to be alone if we are just willing to reach out. For the elders in our communities especially, who may be struggling during this time, we can keep in touch, leave provisions on their doorsteps, and generally help in any way we can within the parameters of keeping them safe and the current government guidelines. Nobody needs to be entirely isolated when love holds out its graceful hand. The C virus is allowing us pause for thought. This can be a precious time when we can ask ourselves some important and potentially life-changing questions. For example, what do we really need to live more fulfilled lives? Apart from the 5 basic survival needs of oxygen, water, food, shelter, and sleep, and we could add a 6th, which although is not a survival need, is fundamental: physical contact. What we need is very simple. We need love. We need physical contact and touch. We need a sense of belonging. We need more play and fun. We need more joy and laughter. We need more creative encouragement and freedom. We need more time in nature. We need time out to simply be. We need to connect more meaningfully with ourselves and others. We need time for heart-to-heart communication and soul-to-soul communion. We need connection with nature, earth, spirit, and the spirit of life. We need to experience life in all its glory, in a whole new way that supports our well-being and brings us closer to living in a more harmonious world. We were born for something far greater. In today's world, many suppress their deepest feelings and have taken exile in the superficial levels of the mind. This is a reaction to a purposely addictive culture that promotes adaptation and a life lived in lack of balance because of a never-ending bombardment of distractions that keep us from discovering our true and authentic selves. We were not born to study, work and die. We were born for something far greater, to live with purpose and joy in equal measure. Social convention tells us how we should live our lives according to the set rules and regulations within a system motivated purely by profit. But these are the most auspicious times when the evolutionary directive is to break free from old patterns and establish healthy new templates that care for the body, feelings, mind, heart, psyche and soul. We are meant to experience in equal balance the ordinary and extraordinary, responsibility and freedom, challenges and miracles, work and play on our sojourn on this celestial jewel that is planet Earth. More than the small things in life. We need to step back for a while to rest, realign, and reignite our passion for life as we are truly meant to be living it. We have dutifully adhered to the notion that we must appreciate the small things in life and be grateful for small mercies. This is all most of us have been conditioned to aspire to. But that was then, and this is now. And we can aspire to our heart's longing and to the biggest thing of all, living a fulfilled life. Much of the world around us is in lockdown, but only for a brief moment. Suddenly, we find ourselves at home with time on our hands. So why not pause to drink from this oasis for a while and count our blessings for what we do have and be willing to share what we can with others? As I write this on a weekday, I hear children playing outside in the surrounding gardens, lawns being mowed, trees being pruned, music quietly playing. I see people in deck chairs reading or with eyes closed relaxing, and families sat together or neighbours talking, albeit from a safe enough distance, over the garden fence or from their balconies. The streets and roads are quiet and the shops are mostly closed. It all reminds me of how Sundays used to sound when I was a young child. For once, the world is not revolving around a consumer-driven clock with its demands to work, work and work, spend, spend and spend, and then, at the end of it all, die. This does not have to be a bittersweet life, as Richard Ashcroft from The Verve wrote, quote, "It's a bitter-sweet symphony, this life. Trying to make ends meet, you're a slave to the money, then you die. I can't change, close quote. But we can change, for we change our fate by the choices we make. So we can and must choose life, now on our own terms. A life in which we make space for more time, one that is directed by the benevolent forces of peace, joy, soul and spirit, the north, south, east and west of the metaphorical compass of the heart. How present are these forces within your own life? If not in equal balance, then what are you prepared to do about it? The giveaway. In the wisdom teachings of the First Nations people, there is a deeply spiritual ceremony called the giveaway, which, in essence, asks that we give away something of value and importance. This is done in the spirit of letting go of what we choose to give away, so that we can open ourselves to the potential for something far more precious and meaningful to come into our lives. This, of course, is not the reason we give away, but there is a universal response to doing so, especially when it is something of significance. As we then open the way for something of even greater meaning and value to gift our lives. The same can be true if we embrace this moment of inside. What do we wish to give away? What are we attached to that needs to be let go of? Could it be false security perhaps? Or a tiresome job? Maybe the extra shift we take on to avail ourselves of more stuff. The spending on extraneous non-essentials. The avoidance of being alone for fear of loneliness. What might it be for you? Fundamentally, could it be the loss of your time and freedom that you wish to give away? To do this, you might need to reorder your life and priorities. And what about love? And the time needed for creating more of this in our lives away from the treadmill of doing. Let the running stop, the mind-numbing routine stop, the deafening noise of doing stop, the endless to-do lists stop, the dizzying rush stop, the chaotic pace stop. Instead, let us take hold of this unique opportunity to embrace this experience of inside and all it can offer to those whose soul is deeply listening to its higher dimensional invitation. There is nothing that brings lovers, friends, families, communities, nations, and the world closer together than a crisis. It is in our DNA to care for each other and support one another at such times, and the same applies now. The C virus appears to be as concerning to us as diseases of the past, for example, the Spanish flu, avian flu, Hong Kong flu, swine flu, Ebola, etc. And we pray for those who have transitioned due to any of these pandemics, and most especially now. But borders have never been closed before and on such a global scale. Neither was a lockdown put into effect, so why now? Many theories abound, and I have my own personal views on this, but as stated earlier, this is not the time or place to share them. However, everything is part of a greater spiritual plan and ultimately serves Gaia, nature, and humankind. In God, Source, Love, we trust. Love. From a higher dimensional viewpoint, the answer to the question why now is divine orchestration and divine timing. The collective is ready for another divinely timed intervention. The C virus can, with its focus on purification, support the opening of the crown chakra of the world. It calls to the heart to open first, for this is a prerequisite to the opening of the crown. For this to occur, we need the necessary moment for inner focus, for reviewing our lives, for opening to love and or redressing imbalance in regard to love and to strive to love even more. Prioritize these above all else, and do not be afraid to love. What is most important is that we immerse ourselves in a collective heart opening that precedes the opening of the crown, and at that point, everything changes and transforms. We will never be the same again, personally or as a collective, as we move into a whole new paradigm of evolved consciousness. This call to retreat heralds a time of accelerated consciousness awakening on a global scale, a collective reset, catalyzed by the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of January the 12th, 2020. And for anyone interested, there's an amazing YouTube clip where you will find that link on this article at this point of the transcript on the website, on my website. Love. The message of the corona crown virus informs us that it is time to reclaim our sovereign status as beings of light incarnate in this world. It is time to more fully remember that we are sovereign beings of love, to remember the more than we are, and the more than our lives can become, are meant to be. It is time to remove the mask of adaptation and reveal our true and authentic self. It is time to remember that we are not meant to be humans doing, but humans being, here as love, from love, and who will one day return to love when we leave this earth. Heartfelt greeting and connection. One of the health guidelines we're being asked to observe is to no longer shake hands or greet each other with a hug or kiss. Again, looking from a glass is half full rather than half empty perspective, we are afforded the opportunity to greet each other in the ancient tradition of India and Tibet. Namaste. The first is the profoundly sacred Namaste, where we bow slightly to another with our hands pressed together in prayer position and fingers pointing towards the heavens while keeping our thumbs close to our heart chakra, chest. Namaste translates as I bow to the divine within you, and the divine or God within me recognizes and honors the divine or God within you. It is a heart-to-heart and soul-to-soul connecting of two who are sharing a moment of oneness. Heart salutation. For those who might prefer a different greeting, you can offer a beautiful heart salutation by simply placing your right palm with fingers outstretched across your heart chakra. Hold that stance for a few seconds, or for as long as you wish to enjoy such a moment with another, who themselves may automatically mirror the same gesture in response. A more meaningful standard greeting. And let us also consider what is, for most of the world, the standard way of greeting, i.e. the shaking of hands, a physical embrace, or a customary kiss on the cheek. The current suspension of this type of greeting could help us to appreciate more the sixth fundamental need for physical contact. For some, this may be the only form of physical connection they experience. So, rather than this custom being automated, let it convey the same sacredness and honoring as the greetings of Namaste and the heart salutation. A lotus aeon. The evolutionary influence on humanity of the COVID-19 strain of the corona crown virus facilitates a collective opening of the heart and a higher state of consciousness. It is one of an ongoing series of radical wake-up calls for humanity, the homeopathic dose of which I spoke of earlier. We are being supported to transform fear into love, suffering into bliss, lost into found, reminded to balance work, responsibility and service equally with play, freedom and joy, urged to empower ourselves in preparation for the birth of the next great epoch, a lotus aeon, when we rise as a collective out of the murky depths of an old paradigm entrenched in a love of power directive. When this ultimately falls, the blossoming of a lotus aeon will grow out of a soul-drenched and spirit-rich fertile soil to light the way ahead. This constitutes a new conscious age founded on the power of love, the crowning. This is a time of unprecedented change and transformation, prophesied to unfold now by every ancient wisdom culture throughout millennia. This is a time of accelerated awakening and healing. This is the time of metamorphic alignment, physical to metaphysical, personality to soul. This is the time of dramatic endings and fortuitous beginnings. This is the time of replacing fear with trust that is born out of love. This is the time of transcending I am, lowercase I, lowercase a, disempowered, to I am, capital I, capital A, empowered, to the ultimate embodiment of I am, full caps, sovereign state of being. This is the time of a collective crown activation following a greater opening of the collective heart. This is the time of activating dormant cellular and cellular codes as the world prepares for a series of evolutionary upgrades on a scale never before known. This is the time of crisis that leads to opportunity, emergency that precedes emergence. This is an extraordinary moment for spiritual renewal and for remembering who we really are, love, and vessels of and for love. This is the time of the crowning of a lotus aeon, the birthing into a new timeline where love, consciousness, heart to heart, soul to soul, spirit to spirit, and source connection prevail. The crown chakra of the planet is preparing to open. The crown chakra of the collective is preparing to open. The crown chakra of the world is preparing to open. All is part of the divine plan. All is well, and all shall be well. In love we trust, for this is all there is, ever was, and ever will be. Namaste, Nicolya.